Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at an absurdly spicy Pokemon in the Open Ultra League, and that is level 50 VIVILLON. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Toblerone, so many thanks for the battle submission. VIVILLON is a bug and flying type Pokemon with the moveset of Gust, Hurricane, and Bug Buzz. At level 50, it only gets to about 2100 CP, so it's definitely going to need some help to get some wins. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out level 50 VIVILLON in the Open Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a great lead Shadow Skuntank into VIRIZION. Opponent is going to stay in, throw one double kick, save switch into their own Skuntank, but being down on energy means that they're going to be in a pretty difficult spot when it comes to making a play for switch advantage. Flamethrower will be shielded up by the opponent. Opponent is massively over farming here, and now we see a no shield, calling that it is going to be the crunch bait, and it is. That's a very nice call. Opponent is forced to go for crunch number 2, and now it's decision time. Do you elect to shield to try and force the final shield from the opponent? Yes, shielding up the crunch, going for the flamethrower. If the opponent shields, they will be able to poison jab down, so now we see a switch into Weezing. Weezing farming up, making it to the overheat, but unfortunately losing CMP to the Skuntank. Skuntank made it to the flamethrower. That does quite a lot of damage to the Weezing, but with no shields remaining for the opponent, this overheat will be lethal and get rid of the Skuntank. They can't really send in VIRIZION, so they send in the final Pokemon, which is Guzzlord. Guzzlord, unfortunately, is walling this debuffed energy from the Weezing. Weezing firing off the Brutal Swing. That, of course, not going to do a whole lot. Weezing now going to go for the Overheat. Again, this is resisted, and it's double debuffed, so it's still not going to be doing a ton of damage to the Guzzlord. Guzzlord leaves with a massive amount of energy, and now is it time? Do you send in VIVILLON? Sending in VIVILLON. VIVILLON gets the Gust through as the opponent is going to fire off their energy. They go for the Dragon Claw. We see a switch into the Skuntank to catch the next charge move. Very nicely done. And now this can potentially set up VIVILLON for a farm down. If VIVILLON can get a farm down here and leave with the Hurricane, this VIRIZION is going to have a terrible day. VIVILLON looking for the farm down, gets the farm down, and it's all over for the opponent. Bring back in that VIRIZION. VIRIZION gets one shot by a Hurricane, and that's a good game. The good leads continue in the next match, leading Shadow Skuntank into Tapu Fini. But a Nidoqueen save switch does prove to be problematic for this team, as Nidoqueen doesn't really have any hard checks here. We see the Crunch able to connect onto the Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen has farmed up a ton of energy. This is a tough call to make. Skuntank commits the shield. It's the Earth Power. That's a big call. Unfortunately, Skuntank has now been debuffed. Skuntank farming up, going for the crunch. Decision time for the opponent. Are they willing to protect the Nidoqueen? Yes, they are. We see a switch into VIVILLON. Is this the Earth Power? Please. It is the Earth Power that does absolutely nothing to VIVILLON, and VIVILLON is looking for the Gust farm down. Opponent is going to make it to the Poison Fang. That does quite a lot of damage to VIVILLON, and VIVILLON is now into the red health. Opponent sends in Mandibuzz. This Hurricane is going to hurt. Decision time for the opponent. Do they protect the Mandibuzz? No, they do not. And Mandibuzz not going to have a good day when it sees that Galarian Weezing available in the back. Now, Weezing definitely would prefer to have Play Rough in this matchup, as that way it could hit for super effective damage without having to debuff itself like it does from an Overheat. In comes the Tapu Fini. We're going to see the Overheat from the Weezing, and then you can send back in the Skuntank. Overheat does some chip damage, and now it's all about those super effective poison jabs just tearing through Tapu Fini's HP bar. Tapu Fini goes for the Surf. We see a shield from the Skuntank. Can Skuntank commit to the farm down? Not going to risk it. Going for the crunch. Opponent doesn't really have a reason to shield here. They are going to let this through and just trust in the Mandibuzz to win the game. Skuntank is able to make it to the flamethrower, putting pressure on that final shield. Opponent is going to let this go, but this just sets up a Fairy Wind farm down win con for the Weezing. Opponent can go for the Aerial Ace, but Aerial Ace not going to do a whole lot to the Weezing. Weezing looking for the farm down of the Mandibuzz and gets it. The good leads continue for the Shadow Skuntank, as this time it leads into Cresselia. and the opponent is staying in, which is a surprise, as this is not a good spot to be in if you're the Cresselia. Skuntank is going to strike first, going for the Crunch. Crunch will hit for massive super effective damage onto the Cresselia. Cresselia is going to return fire, but Skuntank doesn't have to respect this. Moonblast doesn't do a ton of damage, and now Skuntank is going to make it to Crunch number 2. Opponent has a choice to make. How much do they value the Cresselia? Do they want to keep it? Yes, they do. They will commit the shield, and now if Skuntank wants, it can just match shields and guarantee to keep switch. Opponent will go for the Moonblast. Skuntank farming up. Skuntank just cannot get the farm down. We see the 1 HP survive by the Cresselia, and Cresselia wins switch. That is very unfortunate. In comes the Weezing. Weezing does get a 2 Fairy Wind head start. Opponent sends in Trevenant, and oh my goodness, they've got to be completely core broken by the Weezing. Weezing going straight for the overheat into the Trevenant. Trevenant will commit a shield. Weezing can survive here, so I do like the no shield, as the opponent ends up baiting with a Seed Bomb, and now in comes VIVILLON, and VIVILLON is going to be met with Cobalion. Cobalion is going to be hit with a neutral Hurricane. Let's see this damage from the VIVILLON. Big damage onto Cobalion. And this is a tough call to make. Is Cobalion baiting? Are they full sending? Calls the bait. It's the Stone Edge. And down goes VIVILLON. But back in comes Weezing. Weezing going for the Brutal Swing. That will get the KO. Back in comes the Trevenant. Trevenant has quite a lot of energy here. Tough call to make. Commits the shield. It's the Seed Bomb. Can you make it to the Overheat? Yes, you can. Overheat will be lethal. Goodbye to the Trevenant. And that's a good game. Hopping to the next match, picking up a pretty decent lead, Shadow Skuntank into Golisopod. Skuntank should typically be able to dictate switch advantage in this matchup, which is quite nice, as oftentimes a Golisopod lead can potentially come with a Steelix in the back, and if that's the case, you definitely do not want that lined up against VIVILLON. Farming up a bunch of energy with the Skuntank, opting to go for the Crunch here. Decision time for the opponent. Do they respect the potential overheat? They do, and they get debuffed as well. That is very, very nice for the Skuntank. Skuntank is going to be committing the shield. Now it's Skuntank's turn to get debuffed by the Liquidation. Skuntank going for the Crunch. Is the opponent willing to double shield? They are not. Down goes Golisopod, and right on cue, there is Steelix. Skuntank making it to the Flamethrower, and this is going to hurt. This is super effective damage. Steelix commits the shield, but now this opens up the opportunity for Weezing to go for an overheat. Weezing farming up energy. Steelix is at enough for the Earthquake. Weezing, ooh, this is going to be tough. We see the shield, and it's not a bait. A rare Steelix that actually full sends the big move, and now it's overheat time. Overheat into the Steelix. Massive damage in the back. It's a Lowland Sandslash, and Sandslash, overheat number 2. Let's do this thing. Overheat connects. That does massive damage. We see a switch into VIVILLON. VIVILLON unfortunately doesn't have much of any play in the back, as the opponent has Sandslash, but Weezing should be more than enough to sweep here. Opponent is going to be forced to fire off another Ice Punch, and this just gives energy to the Weezing. Weezing looking for the farm down, can't quite get there. Sandslash on 1 HP, able to make the drill run, but we do see the Weezing able to survive and leave with another overheat. So VIVILLON unfortunately couldn't do much in the back, but the Galarian Weezing putting the team on his back and taking the win. Moving to the next match, leading Shadow Skuntank into Giratina, but this is a Dragon Breath Giratina, and this means this is a losing lead for the Skuntank. Skuntank will get outpaced. We see a shield as Giratina fires off the Dragon Claw. Skuntank is going to look to massively overfarm, going for the Crunch just before the opponent is able to make it to their Claw. Crunch will be shielded. Skuntank waits a turn and makes a beautiful catch onto the Galarian Weezing, where it is going to be double resisted. Opponent now going to send in Tapu Fini, and this is where running Brutal Swing and Overheat is very unfortunate, as this energy is completely walled due to Tapu Fini's typing. Weezing is just going to fire off the Overheat. Overheat will connect. Unfortunately, not going to do a lot of damage, and now future moves are going to be double debuffed. That Brutal Swing does absolutely nothing to the Tapu Fini. This is just a really unfortunate matchup for the Weezing. Opponent is going to be firing off the Surf. Surf does some pretty significant damage, and now the opponent can potentially commit to the farm down. but the switch clock is up. In comes the Skuntank. Skuntank going for the crunch, putting pressure onto the Tapu. Opponent already shielded once. Are they going to shield again? No, and the Skuntank just cannot get the KO. Tapu Fini with the 1 HP survive, and now it's looking like VIVILLON might have to sweep in the endgame, which is a bit tough knowing there's a Giratina. Not gonna send in VIVILLON yet, gonna send in this Weezing. Weezing farming up, making it to the Overheat. Overheat is gonna deal some solid damage onto the Greedent. Opponent commits the shield, switch clock not yet up, and it's all up to VIVILLON, and I just don't see a way that VIVILLON is gonna be able to get rid of the Greedent and get rid of the Giratina. VIVILLON, unfortunately, just does not have the damage output, even though it does have Hurricane, and as we've seen, Hurricane can do some solid damage from the VIVILLON. I just don't see it really happening. VIVILLON is able to make it to the Hurricane. Looks like the opponent may have been lagging there slightly. Hurricane does quite a lot of damage onto the Greedent, but Greedent is going to make the move, and then the opponent can just send in the Giratina, and Giratina will just be able to Dragon Breath down, or actually they won't even need to. The Greedent with so much energy. Greedent is an absolute menace, and Greedent will be able to take the win. Moving to the next match, leading Shadow Skuntank, and it's going up against a Shadow Dragonite. This is a tough lead for the Skuntank. Skuntank does get outpaced in this matchup, and I believe Skuntank only wins the 2s. We will see a switch into the Weezing. Opponent staying in and now sending in Registeel. Opponent has given the Galarian Weezing a massive energy head start, and it makes use of it, firing off the Overheat, and that deals massive damage to the Registeel. Registeel can return fire with the Zap Cannon. We will see a shield from the Weezing. Zap Cannon will be shielded. Zap Cannon does get the attack debuff, so now this is a -3 Overheat. Is it going to be enough to KO? It is not. Weezing is going to need to go for a Brutal Swing if it wants to be able to get rid of the Registeel. Registeel is going to commit a shield. Opponent looking to make a play for switch. In comes the Skuntank, saving that Weezing for later. And the opponent clearly has no response to it, so I do really like that play. And now you can just wait the timer, send back in the Weezing, and just get a bunch of energy. But instead, gonna send in VIVILLON as the opponent sends in Cobalion. Cobalion has enough for the Stone Edge. Tough call to make, committing the shield, and it is the correct shield as the opponent is gonna fire off the Stone Edge. VIVILLON throwing on very nice timing here, going for the Hurricane. Hurricane into Cobalion, will be shielded. Cobalion farming up energy here. Cobalion over farming quite a bit. This Stone Edge, double super effective damage, so this is going to be goodbye to the VIVILLON. Back in comes the Weezing. Weezing makes it to the Overheat, and Overheat will be taking care of Cobalion. Dragonite has so much energy available in the back, but the issue is, all this energy is double resisted, so there's not really much of anything it can do in terms of damage. Dragon Claw, double resisted. Superpower, double resisted. Dragonite is going to be firing off another charge move here. Dragonite will go for the Dragon Claw. Opponent goes for a catch onto the Registeel, and the catch is unsuccessful. We see the doubling up of charge moves by the Weezing. Brutal Swing gets rid of the Registeel. In comes the Dragonite, and Dragonite will be hit with the Brutal Swing. This is debuffed from the Overheat, but it will still do enough damage, and that's game over. Hopping to the final match, leading Shadow Skuntank into VIRIZION. The lead that we see in the first battle, we now see in the final one. And the opponent is staying in this matchup as the VIRIZION, which is quite surprising. VIRIZION is going to go for the Sacred Sword. VIRIZION continuing to farm. Skuntank throwing on very nice charge move timing. And this Flamethrower is going to easily get the KO. Opponent commits the shield. VIRIZION farming up energy. This Sacred Sword will be lethal. Skuntank is going to match shields. Skuntank trying to make it to the crunch and just is not able to get there. And now a decision point in the match. We see the shield from the Skuntank. Skuntank is going to get the farm down. Opponent sends in Giratina, and committing that second shield for switch advantage looks to be massive as the opponent has the Giratina in the back. Giratina farming up energy and forced to throw as the Skuntank was almost at the crunch. Dragon Claw will be lethal, and now you can just send in the Weezing. Opponent in the back has Drifblim, and Drifblim is not going to appreciate the super effective Brutal Swings coming out from the Weezing. Brutal Swing will be shielded. Opponent farming up energy. We see a switch into VIVILLON, as VIVILLON is going to get the gust through. Opponent goes for the Shadow Ball. That does so much damage to VIVILLON. VIVILLON, is it going to get farmed down here? No. Able to make it to the Bug Buzz, but this is heavily resisted by the Drifblim. Bug Buzz does absolutely nothing to the Drifblim, but the Weezing has the Brutal Swing loaded. Is this going to be enough to KO? Drifblim is quite tanky, but not tanky enough. Brutal Swing gets the KO, and the opponent concedes the match. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to watch these battles. XL VIVILLON, definitely not a Pokemon that I would recommend for climbing by any means. Gust is being a 4-turn fast move to start with is already a major disadvantage in Go Battle League, and on top of that, only getting to 2100 CP and the typing, VIVILLON really doesn't have a lot going for it, which is quite unfortunate. It would definitely benefit from, I believe it actually does learn the move of Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace, of course, does deal a lot less damage, but you can actually get to the move a lot faster. So in terms of VIVILLON getting some help in terms of viability, definite step one is going to be getting a better fast move. Gust just really not great. It is the 4-turn fast move, which means you can't really ever catch as long as the opponent knows what they're doing. So overall, VIVILLON definitely had some fun sets with it, but definitely a Pokemon that I would recommend more for fun and not for climbing. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.